Hey everybody, Aaron Cowan, Sage Dynamics for Kenzie's Optics. In this video, I want to talk about mounting your pistol optic. Depending on what gun you choose, there's a bunch of different options out there. You can get a Glock MOS, you can get an FN509, you can get a Smith & Wesson Core. Those are all OEM mounting systems. And then there's aftermarket systems, having the gun milled. I'm a big fan of milled modular, which is kind of a hybrid category, and where the gun is milled for an aftermarket plate system. The best being the Agency Arms AOS. It is a little bit more of an investment, but you get a steel plate which has irons priority. You can put irons forward, irons back. Very good mounting system, puts the optic very low into the gun, as low as it can possibly be, depending on which brand you're looking at. And it gives me a solid platform with which to mount my optic. One of the things that has consistently frustrated newer red dot shooters for handguns is mounting. There's so much conflicting advice out there on what to do. Kenzie's carries the C&H plate system. I like C&H a lot for aftermarket solutions, especially for the Glock MOS, because the Glock MOS plates, while they do work, they're not very good, long-term reliable. And I'm speaking from experience of seeing those plates break habitually in classes. The plate is too thick, which leaves very few threads of the mounting screws to actually make contact into the plate, or I should say the slide itself, and then you mount the optic to it. The plates are also made with metal injection molding or casting. So sometimes they're warped right out of the package, and if there's any kind of play in that plate, recoil is going to cause it to whip, and eventually the plate is going to fracture, or it's going to strip the screw out, or something like that's going to happen. And a condition I like to call surprise iron sights occurs, in which the optic flies off the gun during a cycle of fire. So if you have an MOS, don't use MOS plates, use an aftermarket plate. And then you should pay attention to what the manufacturer is recommending of your aftermarket plate, like C&H Precision, for recommended torque. You can get on Amazon, or you can go to Harbor Freight, or really anywhere, and buy a very inexpensive hex torque wrench. Get that torque wrench. You may say, well, you know, how often do I use it? You're going to use it a lot. Besides that torque wrench, what you want to do is you want to get yourself a product called Vibratite VC3. People say Loctite, and I think when they say Loctite, what they mean is thread locker, and that's not necessarily the case. Loctite, the red and the blue, are the two most popular colors. They're the most easily accessible. You can find them at Home Depot or whatever. Do not put those on optics that you're mounting to a gun. One, it's designed for much larger screws. It says right on the package the recommended size, diameter, thread pitch, whatever. Vibratite VC3 is semi-malleable, which means just a little bit of heat and it starts to loosen up. Best advice I can give you for mounting is, one, follow the manufacturer's recommended torque for the mounting of the screws, both the plate to the gun and the optic to the plate. But also, apply that thread locker if it doesn't come with the optic, which it will. With C&H comes with Vibratite VC3, but it's always good to own some too. Apply it to the screws, then let it dry. And this is a step that a lot of people miss. You have to let it dry, otherwise when you apply the screws to the gun, it acts as a lubricant. You want it to be dry, and you want to wipe off as much excess. It doesn't take much to lock those threads. Then you properly apply it to the gun, insert it, mount it, and then witness mark your screws, which basically can be done with a little whiteout pen or a paint marker, and it basically a mark across the top of the screw which goes onto the shroud or the body of the optic. And the whole purpose of that is literally it's a witness mark. If those screws start to back out during use, and it could be a year or 2 years down the road, especially if you choose an optic that doesn't have to be removed from the gun to change the battery, you may mount it and forget it. Don't want to do that. So those witness marks give us a quick visual reference point that we need to say, oh, my screw's loose, or my screws are still good to go. That's the best advice I can give you for mounting pistol optics. Take a lot of the myths and mysticism out of it. Follow manufacturer's recommended torque. Make sure your thread locker is dry before you reapply. Witness mark those screws. I'm Aaron Cowan with Sage Dynamics for Kenzie's Optics. Train accordingly.